At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards the people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Governor Haley.
Folks, we just came off of the 4th GOP presidential debate in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And as we've done for every single one of these, I got to give you my review, thoughts, and reaction. But before we do that, everyone right now, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And with that said, first of all, I thought this was actually the most entertaining GOP debate yet to date. But with that said, I think the main story of tonight was the utter and complete destruction of the neocon corporate globalist feminist warmonger known as Nikki Nimrata Haley. And don't get me wrong, Vivek and Nikki have been going at this for a while. We have been attacking her ever since she declared her hat in this presidential race. I've been against her. I've seen the fraud she was from the beginning. But there have been debates, notably the second one, where she came off, at least in the eyes of some voters, having a visibly strong, I guess you would say, performance. That was not the case at all whatsoever tonight. Again, it was a complete destruction of her. And I think it all started the moment that she decided to self-implode in the opening statements by basically admitting that she is a corrupt, bought and paid for politician. Take a look.
In reference to donors coming on board, look, we will take support from anybody we can take support from. But when it comes to these corporate people that want to suddenly support us, we'll take it. But I don't ask them what their policies are.
You'll get on your knees for them, won't you?
They ask me what my policies are, and I tell them what it is.
And if that wasn't enough, the things that Vivek threw at her, like I said, not the first time he is attacking Nikki Haley, and rightfully so. She is a terrible candidate, a warmonger, a very corrupt person. On top of all of that, she's just a bad person. But I just have to play the video for itself because nothing I can say does it justice. But take a look at the way this was by far the most brutal savaging of Nikki Haley we have seen yet to date, and the entire thing had her on her heels. Ironic, haha, pun intended there. Had her on her heels for the entire night. Take a watch.
We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounded like a woke Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad talking about how she would kick in heels. At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet.
Where are the college students in the crowd?
Use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards the people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
You sexist.
No. It's not worth my time to respond to him.
Yeah, you're giving up. You're gonna cry. She's gonna cry. Look at her. She's gonna cry.
We're not going to give you a response to the question that was to you.
Absolutely brutal. And by the way, all true. And you know why Nikki did not want to respond to what Vivek said? She and her two supporters in this entire country can write it off as saying, well, no, I was being dignified and I was being classy. It's not about that. It's about two things. First of all, there's nothing you can say to come back to that, because not only is it so unbelievably brutal, but it is also verifiably true. But on top of that, point number 3 here, look at her face. She was literally about to cry. Okay, they went after her so hard. I kid you not. Look at her facial expressions. Watch the full debate here. Tell me I'm wrong. The entire time, Nikki was reeling so much. She was so unable to handle the attacks and the criticism that she was genuinely going to cry.
If you have been a government elected official doing deals with companies, be they Boeing or be they pharmaceutical companies, you should not join the board of that company for 10 years after. The former chairman of the FDA, the leader commissioner of the FDA, ended up on the board of Pfizer. Nikki Haley did deals with Boeing, ends up on the board of Boeing. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there. The donors right there that are playing her like the puppet masters.
Hold on.
And I think, too, what really set her over the edge and just made her fully incapable of handling this and really making her need to go cry in a corner or maybe go cry on TikTok, I don't know, who knows, was the fact that, you know, she's used to Vivek absolutely ravaging her and going after her. But in this debate, very interestingly, Ron DeSantis, from the first minute, decided to also maybe arguably wake up for once and kind of do something. He also made Nikki Haley, I should say, a big target. And so it ended up being at oftentimes Ron and Vivek teaming up to absolutely brutalize Nikki Haley and take this neocon piece of crap out of the race for good.
And you have other candidates up here like Nikki Haley. She caves
he's going after
anytime the left comes after her, anytime the media comes after her.
True.
I did a bill in Florida to stop the gender mutilation of minors. It's child abuse and it's wrong. She opposes that bill. She thinks it's fine and the law shouldn't get involved with it. If you're not willing to stand up for the kids,
he's actually trying now.
if you're not willing to stand up and say that it is wrong to mutilate these kids, then you're not going to fight for the people back home. I will fight for you and I will win for you.
We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas. We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
That's false.
She said, I want your name.
She
as president of the
absolutely
United States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do,
I said we were going to get the millions of bots.
She wants government ID to dox every American.
That's what she said. You can roll the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government. We have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been attacked and they've lost jobs and they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people.
Okay,
it was a bad idea, and she should own up to it.
So that was definitely enjoyable to see. And folks, not that it ever had a chance of going far beyond 15%, but Nikki Haley's campaign absolutely was shattered tonight. And truly, I'd like to see what Nikki Haley supporters actually think of this. I mean, I've never actually met one in real life or even seen one argue with me on the internet, almost like they're not even real, or they only exist on the boards of Raytheon and in small circles of Republican donors. Hint, hint. But regardless, I don't see how you can defend the performance tonight. Because she was on the defensive the entire time, and instead of playing good defense, she would, like, every time she was criticized, you could see her face. She was like, she was clearly about to cry at many different points. Just weak, okay? The whole strong, independent girl boss mantra that she's been running with since the first debate, where she insulted the entire male race and said we don't know how to lead and only women are capable of leading. Reminder, she did say that. Conservative, by the way, wants men to vote for her, by the way. I found that highly insulting as a man. Still, regardless, that entire image of graceful strength she had tonight was completely decimated, because all I saw was a whiny little girl about to cry, quite literally. As for Ron DeSantis, because we just kind of talked about him, you know, a lot of what we've seen so far from his presidential campaign has been bafflingly bad or incompetent or whatever, just non-factor. I thought tonight was his best debate performance that he's had so far. Now, what are the reasons for that? Well, first and foremost, I thought the idea to maybe show a little bit of personality for once and kind of take the gloves off and go after Nikki Haley, I thought that was a very strategically good move, because obviously not only is Nikki nearing him in the polls right now, but also as like a Trump guy myself, I was rooting for Ron in that moment, right? I was actually satisfied. I was saying, yeah, team up, go after her, because no one likes Nikki Haley. No one who is a like MAGA-leaning conservative has anything less than contempt for that woman. So I think that actually boosted his likability a little bit. Maybe he got a little bit of social confidence after doing well in the Newsom debate last week. I don't know. And then on top of that, I think one of the big reasons I guess he did well, besides, again, showing a little bit more it factor or personality, is the fact that it was a smaller debate stage, right? Because Ron's a little quiet, it's easy to get drowned out on a big stage. It was a smaller stage. So, like I said, not a perfect performance at all from DeSantis. Did not like a lot of his answers on foreign policy. Felt like they're a little bit hawkish at times, but still overall, best debate performance so far. And you really have to look at that and say, well, where was this the entire campaign thus far? And that's a good question. But, you know, I think you're now seeing, okay, he's waking up a little bit. Is it too little too late? The sad answer, if you're a DeSantis supporter, I would argue is probably yes, right? You know, now he's starting to show a little something, but Iowa's next month. And I don't think he's anywhere close to overtaking Trump. He still has to fend off Nikki Haley, which I thought he did a good job of doing tonight. But, you know, perspective and time does matter there. But like I said, you know, just as a review, thought DeSantis, one of his best performances that we've seen thus far. As for Chris Christie, you're probably wondering why we're so far into the video and not talked a lot about him at all whatsoever. Well, the sheer fact of the matter is he was kind of just there. I mean, truly at many points in the debate, he was just a complete non-factor. It took about 17 minutes for anyone to even notice that he was debating on that stage. And most of the time when he was talking, I mean, it was just a bunch of blabbering. Like, it was just a bunch of nonsense. He wasn't really saying anything of substance. And so I can't even look at it and say he's wrong about this, this, and that, because like he was just yapping. Literally, he was, you know, Chris Christie, I learned today, actually speaks two languages. He speaks English and Japanese. Okay, because that's all he was doing. Really, one of the only notable moments of this night, besides the fact that he very unhinged was yelling at Vivek and then yelled at DeSantis, was the fact that he literally said that he's okay with parents sterilizing their children, right? Doing sex change surgeries and hormones and all this stuff for trans kids, quote unquote, on children. He's fine with that. He thinks that should be legal in the name of small government and quote unquote protecting parents' rights.
Here's my follow-up question. You talk about parental rights. Let's talk about them. When you were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity, even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. No. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It is absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That law was put into effect in 2018 and regulated in 2018 after I was out of office.
You mandated the guidelines.
No, we did not, Megyn. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I stood up every single time for parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
But parents...
Every single time, parents should make those decisions. And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents, you don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be focused on.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures, and this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down.
Yeah. So that is the state of our Republican Party. By the way, should note this, Nikki Haley agrees with that. She said that earlier last week. So 2 of the 4 candidates on the Republican, not the Democrat, on the Republican debate stage support parents being able to force sterilize their children in the name of, quote unquote, hey, well, that's parental rights as well. To which and by the way, that's small government. Hey, you want the government to get involved in stuff? Well, no, I don't want the government to be involved in everything, but the government does shield and have laws surrounding child abuse. And I don't think anything comes closer to meeting the definition of child abuse than forced and permanent and life-altering sterilization of your children. Okay? So the small government argument, first of all, is absolutely deranged and ridiculous. There's plenty of precedent for protecting children from abuse. Okay? Don't get me wrong. If it's a parent in terms of, hey, do you want to raise your kids as a more strict disciplinarian, or do you want to be a little bit more liberal and allowing about things? Yes, that is a individual parent's decision. What school you want to send your kids to is an individual parent's decision. But being allowed as a parent to go to a doctor and have the doctor inject dangerous, sterilizing hormones on your child, that is a totally different thing. Not only is that textbook child abuse, that's beyond an individual decision, arguably, that a parent makes, because that also has to do with the medical system. Does that constitute medical malpractice? Should that be legally allowed for doctors and hospitals and healthcare providers to do? So there's just so many more levels to this, but it doesn't even matter, because when it really comes down to it, what we have, 2 of the 4 guys on that stage, guy and girl on that stage, are social liberals who are perfectly okay with all this stuff, and they simply want to enable the left, and they will use small government as an excuse. By the way, Nikki Haley, how are you at all in favor of small government when you want social media users to have to register to use social media, to practice free speech on the internet, to have to submit your government ID to a database? But yeah, I'm sure Nikki Haley is a real proponent of small government, and that's the real reason she's in favor of allowing the kids to be forcibly transed through sterilizing hormones. I'm sure that's the reason why, right? Because she's really about small government and freedom, right? Right? Anyways, closing thoughts here. We reviewed kind of the substance of the debate. Let's kind of talk about the larger themes at play. First and foremost, I'll say it, yes, Donald Trump is still going to be the nominee. Okay, like that it didn't make a difference tonight. With that said, I thought Vivek was great as usual. And regardless of what you think about him, whatever you're going to vote for him, do you trust him? You think he's a George Soros plant, whatever? I think it's an objective reality. He has been a net good in these debates, right? Because he's been sort of a mouthpiece for the Trump movement, or just like authentic conservatism that isn't all about tax cuts and foreign wars, however you want to define it. He's been very effective in these debates at representing that side, and also making Nikki Haley totally, on defense. Imagine if Vivek was not on that stage. Imagine if it was just Christie, Haley, and DeSantis. DeSantis wouldn't be able to handle her on her own, and he would empower her far too much. And Nikki Haley would just be gaslight, gatekeep, girl bossing her way to arguably second place. So thankfully, Vivek really putting her in her place in that regard. And so you like to see it. As for Nikki, as I will reiterate, what an absolutely awful performance. But yeah, that basically wraps up our video here. Okay. Again, to recap, Nikki Haley, your campaign is over, Nikki. Vivek did well. DeSantis did better than he has in the past. Chris Christie, non-factor. And with that said, folks, let me know what you thought of the GOP debate down in the comment section below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, Alpha Moves Only. God bless. Have a very good day and peace.